Thank you. Oh, okay, well, thank you all for coming. It's kind of awesome to be here, really, because this feels like the sort of community grassroots location that I wish we had more of in New York. I mean, I know we try, but it doesn't feel as homey or welcoming as it feels here. So if you don't already have a booklet and you want one, they are by the door. The reason that I suggest you might want one is that my poems take on a bit of a different form than you might be used to, and I will get into why while we're talking. And if you make a donation to Punkhouse, I will sign and number it on your way out. So there are 4 sections in this forthcoming book, and I tried to pull at least a little from each. This poem is from the first section. When my daughter writes the poem of this day, I will be distant in black and mourning. I will be leaning into the open window as I drive us up and over, hauling only what we could carry through 3 boroughs. I tell myself she will remember nothing I want her to forget, as though I could shield her from failures I call attempts. These formative failures I swore to never. Forgive me. Not all scenes can be painted in favorable light. She sees the view from back seat, clenched jaw, my rising tide. Forgive me. For some of us, grief is unshakable anger. It takes up residence within us. For we well-practiced few, anger throws us into the dust of the new. Forgive me. I have dragged my child into my childhood. I am incapable. Me again, here now. Somehow, forgive me. I burned through the saints and call any deity that will have me. Let her painlessly unsee all but my hair catching wind as a wild but tenable flame. Let her remember me only as the woman who carried water up the hill for everyone to finally drink.
Woo! It's okay to clap in here.
It's okay. Yeah, you can wait till the end, whatever. However the spirit moves you. Hareth. For those who don't speak Welsh, which a few of us do, this word means a feeling of homesickness or the lack of the feeling that home elicits. It's actually a very nuanced and complicated word, which I hope that we can assimilate into the English language because we really need it. Hareth. I want to tell you about the light that comes through train windows, but a poet knows our language negligent in the verse of varied light. It makes altars of tables. It hotwires the romantic Victorian gardens of our consciousness. It splays across faces just so. I can see freckles hint at surfacing. I want to tell you about movement and the incessant clacking of a mind on the tracks, the repetition of trees, of pine, of birch, and then of lake and sunset, of bridge in the distance, of bridge carrying me across expanses of pines, birch, lakes, sunsets, red, golden, broken, red. I want to tell you about the people I meet on trains. They want to talk about where they are going. I want to know where they have been, why they are running. Maybe I can learn why I am running, why I cannot stop running. But they tell me about loss, that universal cunt. They give me a reason to sprint. There is so much grief like choking on brown water, grief like inhaling a swarm of bees, grief like shedding skin with each step. How can we move toward anything we know will die? But we do. We run to these dying loves, pretend our journey has just begun. The man at dinner tonight lost 53 years of love. The man at dinner tonight cried and I cried with him. The man tonight waited until dinner to thank someone for letting him speak. There is utter loss in every fold of this planet. I give you no consolation. I can only give you terrible advice. Stay in transit. Dear reader, stay moving so the razored black feather of this fractured place may never scratch you. Thank you. And this is bourbon if anyone needs some. Okay. Okay. Wildflower. This is one where the content is in conversation with form, and one of the reasons we wanted you to be able to see what you were hearing. Wildflower. I watch television shows where women yell at other women. I load, wash, and send emails about degeneration. My daughter busts through, "Mommy, watch this bunny video." I dip into anxious sleep until it is time to make coffee. Another black man shot in the street. I load the dishwasher and send texts about the media cycle, send group texts about cycles. Once I've wiped clean every surface, I retrace lines, stretch tendril vines out over neighbors' lawns, cracking brick walls, dipping roots down cisterns in frenzied flight. From sunlight unknowable, space will fill with life's swell until I am stripped, unsure how to draw breath, how to fill, to release, mend my crack to fissure. I will call all my pieces back, crease their bright blue into a book as a pressed wildflower, and drive to the store for milk. Thank you. So as Chris mentioned, I do a lot of stuff in New York. One of the things that I'm most proud of is that I work with multiple organizations who contract directly with the city or the Department of Corrections to bring arts programming, writing, and literacy workshops into carceral spaces for youth and adults. By diversifying what I do, I get to go to every single facility and work with everybody. One of the first units I worked on with this organization called Prison Rights, created by Jessica Hall, who is brilliant, allowed me to connect with one of the first inmates, and I'll continue to use that word because I want us to all remain uncomfortable about what goes on inside. I know that there is a push to say incarcerated peoples to make it a little less but I can promise you that the false reality created inside makes inmates of prisoners, where they actually mourn your day of release because the most community that you have is on the inside. So it's important to stay present with that. But Darius was the first poet that I worked with. Like, it was 6 weeks in a row where he was waiting for me. I believe it was every Monday. And even if all of the seats in the day room were full, he and I would sit on the floor in the corner and go over everything that he had written. And one of the most interesting things for me is that he was there. I don't want to reveal too much about why he was there, but let's say he was trying to personify a weapon and trying to make sense of the connection that he felt with the weapon. And so as I helped him process that through surrealist verse that honestly no 18-year-old young man should even know how to write, he knew how to write. And from that came Gun Poem, which is why it's dedicated to Darius. Okay, I do need another drink before this one. This one is rough. Oh, you also need to know some old Gaelic of Mice and Men. The well-laid schemes o' mice and men aft gan agley, which is before it was translated into the well-laid plans of mice and men often go awry, which is what Steinbeck based his novel off of. Gun Poem for Darius. 1. He said, "I want to write about the gun. Against the sonic clutter of the day room, I said, consider entry points. Your poem is a house, how will you get in?" He considered the house a long moment. He considered the gun and wrote it his brother, wrote it his bondmate. He wrote the gun clean and young. He wrote the gun fierce. He wrote the gun road trip. He wrote the gun escape. He wrote the well-laid plans Ganaglay. Consider entry points where you're Lenny and the gun is George, where the gun is an impossible question, but you're humming the answer right now, where you're Steinbeck and I'm the page seeking striation. The ending we sit in began with a flinch, at Lenny snapping the neck, a flinch, at tenderness between two men. We are the gun now. Here points us at us. Consider entry points, I said. I said, I can't be the gun. I'm a woman. He said, I can't be the gun. I'm black. I said, I can't be the gun. I'm scared. He said, me too. But we're the only ones here, and someone needs to hold this gun, too. I could play God with any 6 people in this room. The instructor rested a hand gently on his holster. I was there to conquer my fear of guns, 14 and learning the rifling of my own body first. But fear was a frequency I could not shake, said, I'm not touching that thing. The lands and grooves of get and give. He lay with me, prone, target ahead of us, my finger refusing the trigger. Mastering the gun body as mastering my own. How did the student who is terrified of guns get the highest grade in the class? We learn carefully the things we fear. We lay prone, target ahead of us, my finger refusing the trigger. Breathe, he said. There are many gun poems, but this one is mine. 3. At the threshold of home, my mother unhooked her utility belt, draped her coat over the revolver she'd forgotten to leave in her locker. What if I can't stop myself, I thought. What if I wake up and I'm the kid showing her friends the gun? What if I wake up holding it? What if I wake up and my friend is already dead? 4. The poet hates guns. Hangs sketches of revolvers on her walls, tattoos revolvers on her chest, visits art museums with laid out ornaments of the Old West, turquoise handles and mother-of-pearl inlay. The poet fingers their enclosures. The guns feel contained. The guns seek automation. 5. What is a gun? My daughter asks. What is a gun? I say. What is a gun? She asks, but doesn't ask because she's well practiced at active shooter drills. It's scary, Mommy. It's scary because all the kids rush to the corner and I either get squished or I get killed. My mother unhooks her utility belt and drapes her coat over the leather holster. You never touch it, she says. You never, ever touch it. My trembling finger curls the trigger. He lays beside me. You don't have to if you don't want to, he says. But fear is a frequency I must master. Breathe, he says. I breathe. You just wake up in it. You just wake up and everyone is already dead. Breathe, he says. I breathe. Breathe, he says. I breathe. You don't have to, but when you're ready, he says. I pull and pull and pull. Okay, thank you. Thank you. You guys have a booklet? Come on up.
Come on and sit down.
Welcome.
2 spots up here.
It's up to you.
No pressure. I know them.
Okay, so the next poem is kin with the one that follows it, but they're in 2 separate sections. And I included them because although they are a very vulnerable space for me, it was a connection that Chris made as the editor and kind of showed me how the presence of these 2 as kin is really powerful. So my grandmother was a very special woman, and I imagine some of you in the audience have had one of those grandmothers as well. The one that feels sort of magical or tapped into some other place, and the wisdom is just whoa. But then also the love, and it's a tenderness that you don't experience often. And my grandmother was one of those women. And being from New York City, our family so my family's been in New York City for 150 years, Manhattan, Brooklyn, and Staten Island. But there's one segment of the family that has only been on Staten Island for 150 years plus. And the southern tip of Staten Island, which is not so lovingly called the Alabama of New York. So, and we have family that migrated down North Carolina and Florida. So there's always this hill folk vibe that she brought into my life, and she raised me. So yeah, my childhood was steeped in a mysticism that I had no right to. Before July, eclipse season. the celestially sanctified comeuppance, when the streets throw heat back at the sun, and discontent is a sounding quiet. My grandmother said, July's when scores get settled, when we finally all sat down to supper. It's hard to watch if you let it hurt. I stay of the mind that they had it coming. They had it coming from somewhere, because nature may be unkind, but it's fair. And for those of you that didn't know, July is actually the month historically where the most riots take place and the most discontent. And it's also strangely this annual eclipse season, a celestial, literally comeuppance, where everything from the last cycle has to be revealed and dealt with. So the fact that those two facts collide in the month of July, it's pretty powerful. And the other side of history that I hope my family wasn't part of was the draft riots in New York City during and after the Civil War, when the Irish were not so kind to the African Americans in the city. But either way, I might be born of both. The second companion piece. The seeds of revolution are planted in the dirt of inequity. Epigraph. If machines produce everything we need, the outcome will depend on how things are distributed. Everyone can enjoy a life of luxurious leisure if the machine-produced wealth is shared, or most people can end up miserably poor if the machine owners successfully lobby against wealth redistribution. So far, the trend seems to be toward the second option, with technology driving ever-increasing inequality. Stephen Hawking. And just remember that you thought he was a genius before he commented on class. I was born with Judgment Day on my lips, an orphan, too good for nothing, with only half a smile. Grandma called me a holy terror, blonde wraith come down from God knows where to do the work. There's power in a child who tells the truth. This is the trumpet, here are the horsemen. What time have I for revelry with so much work yet to be done? I saw it, clean as fire, but the wings of me got in the way. Their souls straight as barbed wire around me. Wrath felt like kin as she set me to speech. I was her July, her celestial comeuppance, and I'd bring down flood after flood for that woman. She was so good. Thank you. Thank you. So, do we have any poets in the room or people studying poetry? Oh, excellent. Okay, so there's this really cumbersome form called the side-by-side. Are you familiar with it? Oh, yeah. So it's basically a poem. It has to be 3 poems in one. It has to function as the right column being read as a singular piece, the left column being read as a singular piece, and then combined together they have to still form a poem that makes sense. I can tell you that this piece was not as hard for me to write as I thought it would be. It felt somewhat natural, and that leads me to believe that if you have something really important to say, the form finds itself. So please write all of the important things you have to say. So I'm going to read this as 3 pieces. First we're going to do break, then we're going to do pick, and then I'm going to read it in its entirety. And also you might need to know that during the Industrial Revolution, turn of the previous century, there were no child labor laws, especially not the ones that are currently being repealed in this country. But children as young as 4, 5, 6, 7, they were working in the mines. And that work isn't even good for grown-ups. And they were losing digits. They were developing black lung. It's no place for a child to be. Breaker boy, picker boy. Break. Take from the land, give to the hand. Patchtown, snowstorm, picking slate from anthracite, veins like palming fool's gold. Petal the chute, hunched over, headlamp lit, like a ray through storm cloud, the thick soot of shedding coal. Baby boy, black lung, you can't name it. Say, education barrier, There is no school for boys like you, boys who must grow into men, shamed, wresting their stories from history. But you know 7 years old, 6 days a week, when you never see the sun, mark time by shifts in shadow, clean the coal, gloveless, the infinite stream of carbon sheen, sulfuric acid washed hands of no more than 8 fingers. Your father has even less, pats your back, then heads off to his depth of soil in nature's disposable pairing. It's called the migrant stream. But this is American history that has wrought you. You are this country, belt gear, ankle snatch, another tiny sun to be retrieved at shift's end. No body will slow output, will halt the machine. Production trumps need. Baby boy, take deep gulps of air, pull in what you need. Be grateful for the anchor of family, Sunday. You can wake up to the smell of your mother, the warm perfume of her body, and memories of safety. But soon you will become the machines you manufacture yourselves into men who will break her too, boys, the mother who grew you. We'll go back to the beginning. And for those that don't know, the same issues that our ancestors, and I'm not making assumptions about the lineage of the people in the room, but those who are working in the fields right now are facing the same sort of inequity that forebears 100 and somewhat years ago faced. Pick. Take from the land, give to the hand. Clapboard shack, dust storm, pulling grapes from the earthen vines, nature's disposable pairing. Fill basket bent double, burnt crown under sunbeam, pushing through the clotted coating like pollen, dirt, and sweat. Breathe it in. The thick curd of sick, you can't voice it. Say, language barrier. There is no school for boys like you, boys who must grow into men, shamed, wresting their stories from history. You can say 10-hour day, 12 months a year. Your mother tongue is sunlight, falling and rising, the pulsing beat. Cull the earth, calloused skin, reaping what others have sown, pesticides purging useless creatures. Youth is not a metaphor for potential. Your father walks you to the trench, tells you he's proud you work so hard to feed what feeds you. Sometimes you are the throwaway. It's called the migrant stream. A lineage that constructed you and keeps you in the field, the fodder fed to poor whites, tractor bitten, pulled up into mechanism limb by limb. No body like this one will soften hardline economics. Product of grief. Breathe, greedy as life, because few elements will sustain you. Sing praise for loved ones, and one day a week after sunrise, the sweet bread baking like a call back to infancy and maternal embrace. But soon you will become the machines you manufacture yourselves into men who will break her too, boys, the mother who works beside you. And the final will be all of it together. Breaker boy, picker boy. Take from the land and give to the hand. Patch town, clapboard shack, snowstorm, dust storm, picking slate, pulling grapes from anthracite veins, from the earthen vines like palming fool's gold, nature's disposable pairing. Pedal the chute, fill basket, hunched over, bent double, headlamp lit, burnt crown under sunbeam, like a ray through storm cloud, pushing through the thick soot, the clotted coating of shedding coal, like pollen, dirt, and sweat. Baby boy, breathe it in, black lung, the thick curd of sick. You can't name it, you can't voice it. Say education barrier, say language barrier. There is no school for boys like you, boys who must grow into men, shamed, wresting their stories from history. But you know 7 years old. You can say 10-hour day, 6 days a week, 12 months a year. When you never see the sun, your mother tongue is sunlight. Mark time by shifts in shadow, falling and rising, the pulsing beat. Clean the coal, cull the earth, gloveless, calloused skin, the infinite stream of carbon sheen, reaping what others have sown, sulfuric acid-washed hands, pesticides purging useless creatures of no more than 8 fingers. Youth is not a metaphor for potential. Your father has even less. Your father walks you to the trench, pats your back, tells you he's proud you work so hard, then heads off to his depth of soil to feed what feeds you. In nature's disposable pairing, sometimes you are the throwaway. It's called the migrant stream. But this is American history, a lineage that constructed you, that has wrought you and keeps you in the field. You are the fodder this country fed to poor whites. Belt gear, ankle snatch, tractor bitten, another tiny son pulled up into mechanism to be retrieved at shift's end, limb by limb. Nobody will slow output. Nobody like this one will halt the machine, will soften hardline economics. Production, product, trumps need of grief. Baby boy, breathe. Take deep gulps of air, greedy as life. Pull in what you need, because few elements will sustain you. Be grateful for, sing praise for, the anchor of family, loved ones, and Sunday, one day a week, you can wake up after sunrise to the smell of your mother, the sweet bread baking, the warm perfume of her body like a call back to infancy, and memories of safety and maternal embrace. But soon you will become the machines you manufacture yourselves into men who will break her too, boys. The mother who grew you, the mother who works beside you.
Woo!
Thank you. Okay, so there is, like I said, there's 4 sections, and I would like to say some of it is heavy, but I'm having a hard time picturing which part's not heavy. But yeah, it's just all heavy. I've worked on this book for 8 years, and that's the truth. My first book came out in 2016. In 2017, I started trying to assemble this. There was a lot going on within the literary community at that time, and I just kept feeding the manuscript. Everything that I was thinking, everything that I wanted to see come of the conflicts that we were in the middle of. So a lot of what I'm trying to do with this book is to repoint us at American history and the attempts that we have made in the past to connect in a way that transcends identity while still respecting the historical context of identity. Because I do think that identity politics was extremely necessary. We needed that, And now I think we're at a time where it's good to talk about a dream for the future, to show what we're building. Because we spent a lot of time disassembling, and it was, honestly, I love tearing it all down. But I do think that having something that we can look out to, whether it be on the precipice of here in the future is fine, but we need something that we're building towards, otherwise all of our energy is going towards destruction. And I think we've hit a point now where the destruction is transcending identity and coming to the individual. We're breaking each other down. One of the ways that I think we can do this is by unifying as an American culture, not necessarily a nation, but a culture, one of independence and ideals, and people having a belief system that they're willing to put effort into and willing to put themselves on the line for. So this poem, without the title, would mean something very different. And for y'all that don't know, the Monroe Doctrine was something that was introduced by Monroe, which called for American isolationism. And right now, I think it might not be a bad idea to go within and regroup, figure out where we are, who we are, where we're at, and make a plan for the future. But I do it in this way. Monroe Doctrine. Every mother knows at the end of a long day, a long history, a collective life cycle, if she does not sit and gather herself, she might fly into the next unencumbered by her truest needs, beliefs, and desires. She will simply take form and perform acts of love and treaties of bond, not beholden to herself as entity. Herself does not exist when needs are to be met. She is already born and established, yet reinvents the sunrise for the sake of her children. She hangs no mirrors in the monument halls for the sake of perseverance, opens her arms as identity because she is all other mothers, a pure history of mothers, hears calls echo as her own down longitudes, and only in this brief pause to listen does she find breath. Okay. Okay, so after this last poem, we're either going to be friends or not. Un-American. A true revolutionary poet cannot help defying every social and political instrument that has caused death and exploitation. Poetry is the highest principle of language. Philip La Mancha. Having a mute poet laureate is un-American. Landlords are un-American. The landless are free, but their plight is un-American. The war against drugs is un-American. Credit cards are un-American. I'll pay my interest to the people. Recognizing underprivileged without recognizing overprivileged is un-American. Poverty stats are mainstream media, but what about the value structure? Anti-family is un-American. Weird ideologies are fine. Forcing them down others' throats is un-American. Televisions are un-American. Programming outside the self as discovery is un-American. Flyovers and despots are un-American. Setting your own pulpit ablaze in glory is fine. Lighting fire to someone else's is un-American. Pretending contracts or treaties is un-American. You may want to voice that one. Turning a blind eye to sweatshops in any land is un-American. Arguing your side of the debate without being able to argue the opposing is un-American and lazy. Waiting for your chance to be the white man is un-American. Generational wealth creates monsters. Concentration of wealth yields concentration of power. The wealth is partially ours, and the power was never theirs. Our dollars are ballots. What they have is unsustainable. What they have is ours to take. If you build it too, I'll take it from you. Turning a blind eye to child labor is un-American on this shore or the next. Turning a blind eye to child exploitation is un-American. We say, if it's not in my backyard, we say, if it runs counter to my understanding of the way things is, then it's not real. If we've run our ship aground on this willful ignorance, I'll set fire to it myself. Celebrating the end of slavery is un-American. Slavery is far from over. Inauthentic selves are un-American. Selling out is un-American. Alienation is un-American. Our history is shredded paper and torn out hearts. But find a country with a better past, I dare you. Victimhood is un-American. Judging the vessel without hearing the message is un-American. No heroes, no gods. We are free to kill our heroes, but at what cost? We're also perfect. Predation is un-American. Colonizing the language of your fellow citizen is un-American. It seems I have a lot to say. Will you afford me this or will you suffer me this? The closing of manufacturing plants is un-American. Divesting from art is un-American. Divesting from the education and welfare of our youth is un-American. Hold space for me, I'm closing in. Pretending that every child isn't somehow yours is un-American. Silencing music is un-American. Silencing silence is un-American. Banning books just makes you look a fool. I suggest you stop. You're bringing down our stock. Deliverance from evil is un-American. We're here to face the skeletons, not bypass them. Soapboxes, unless made in Detroit, are un-American. Railroads are the engine of this country, ride them. Anti-race pedagogies are un-American. Honor the history, then proceed with reverence. How can we honor the histories if we erase and rewrite them? How can we honor the histories if we judge them as subjective mechanisms? Made in China is un-American. Anti-American is un-American. The song of dissent is anthem. The song of dissent is lullaby. We've put generations to sleep on it. Subliminal advertising is un-American. The burden of a classless system is un-American. Save your fancy rhetoric for the flames. An unarticulated racial caste system is un-American. These are the things we are saying. These are the things now on our tongues. Calling corporations people is un-American. If these bodies incorporate, we make new nation states. The rights not reserved for the states, the rights not reserved, then handed down. The rights not reserved are then for the people. The new nation state, the new revelry. Massacres are un-American. We're lashing out against the us, against the new. Listen, the Monroe Doctrine was cool. We could do that again. We could love ourselves for a minute, build this back up, feed our hungry. Effigies are un-American. Ambivalence is un-American. Apathy, cowardly nonsense. What would you even die for these days, as important as you've become? Allowing companies to sell products to American without employing Americans is un-American. Why should my money feed greed elsewhere? We've plenty hungry snouts here. Not accounting for and making public knowledge every dollar from crop to product to distribution to profit to entity is un-American. It's not communism, it's common sense. Leaded water is un-American. We won't put it in our cars, but security guards are un-American. Single-use plastic is un-American. Imposing hyphenated identities is un-American. Let the children decide for themselves. Don't you tell them what they are, you ask them. The Leviathan is America. If we love this body, if we love ourselves, if we love this and are brave enough to stand it, love this other self, if we're brave enough to stand up for this ideology, if we're brave enough to stand up for it, this history of reinvention, enslavement, tyranny, monarchy, rebellion, effort, let us be reborn in it. All wartime loyalties aside, let us now live for it. And if we, the consensus, find it irredeemable, it is our responsibility to burn it to the ground. Thank you. I'm gonna sit down now, Pappy. I'm promising you 60 to 80% of the people that I have worked with that are there for felonies or multiple felonies come from a childhood home that we would have a difficulty just being as effed up as they are. Like, it's serious. So no one can talk to me about their crime. And that's also because I have an internal judgment system. Like, there were a few, maybe one or two times where the crime got leaked and I was just like, don't even fucking talk to me anymore. Like, I don't even want, like one was sex trafficking. I'm just like, you're dead to me. We're out, we're done. But if I can come into that space of being impartial and non-judgmental, I promise you magic happens in those spaces. When we just connect at that human-to-human level, regardless of the crime or alleged crime that was committed, it's beautiful. So when it came to Darius, I didn't let him talk to me about the specifics of the crime, but he was trying to reconcile his relationship with the gun that was part of his charge, or was part of the crime that was committed. For him, he was little. I think he was even smaller than me, maybe like 5'3", 120 pounds, sort of like skinny. I can understand why he didn't feel safe in the world that he was growing up in, and how this gun was like an extension of his confidence. So much so where he was personifying it. And when he met with me, he wasn't like, he was in the trial mode, so he wasn't facing any sort of a sentence. He was literally trying to process his subconscious and conscious about why he had made a person out of this gun and turned it into his brother in some way, because it was helping him.
Why does your mom have a gun?
Because she's a police officer. Well, was a police officer. Yeah. So my family, like I said, we've been in New York City for a long time. Irish with some German infused, and a lot of civil servants. So my mother was NYPD, my stepfather was NYPD, and then eventually a homicide detective for housing when it was connected to the police department. My sister is currently a cop. Her husband is currently a cop. My uncles are firemen. My brother is sanitation. My grandfather was corrections. And I'm the only one who has kind of taken on this non-civil servant activist role. So it has placed me in a weird conversation with my family and my lineage where I'm still part of it, but like I'm the outsider looking in. So me doing the work that I do, because my grandfather forbid any of us to ever work in prisons. And I actually didn't start this work until he had already passed away. Because he said, if you work in the prisons, you're a prisoner. There's no difference between you and the inmate. You get locked in for that amount of hours, and it's the same life. And for him, that was true because he was a correction officer and then a captain. So yeah, he was locked in there for 8 to 12 hours every time he worked. He worked in the Tombs, which is now MDC. And are you guys familiar with the Tombs and the Bridge of Sighs? No? So it's in a current, or it was rather, it's recently been demolished to build the new super tall skyscraper that will be the new New York City prison. The Bridge of Sighs took its name from the one in Venice, and it's the same deal. It was the prisoners get taken from the Tombs to the court over this bridge that was an arch, and they're sighing. Either they're sighing as like trying to relinquish themselves to their own fate, or after they've been sentenced, trying to make peace with their own fate, and it's a lot of sighing. So that was the life that my grandfather lived for 25 plus years. So yeah, it goes deep, and I'd like to think of myself as some sort of healthy evolution of all of this entrenchment, because I think if you stay in that mode for it's sort of an entropy, right? If you stay there for too many generations, you just kind of accept that that's the way things are, because history sets a precedent. So for me, stepping outside of that and trying to understand the evolution of the human being and the human psyche, it's been really valuable for me as a person to have faith in humanity again, but it has definitely placed me on the outskirts with my family and with some aspects of my community. Living on Staten Island, it's also a very civil servant community. But the work is worthwhile, and if I did anything else, I think I would be feeling as though I was living a lie. I think so.
Beautiful.
Thanks.
Come on, somebody. Grace.
Okay, so Chris and I were actually talking about tempo and how important it is to read poetry out loud, and I think this reading was a wonderful introduction into your work. I think your voice is just perfect
for
the poetry. How did you, I'm sure your inspiration came from a lot of places, but when you were writing, did you ever find yourself speaking to, sort of inspire yourself and get, because you have all the different, especially with Wildflower, how it's on the page, how the placement, did you have to speak out loud, or did you just write it?
You always have to speak it out loud. That might not come in the first draft, it might come in the second or third, but poetry is a lived experience, and we can create the body and the form, but in some way it remains formless until it is uttered. I think I've been fortunate to have, in my short experience with poetry education, I had some really powerful mentors, ones that challenged me. And I would even, if I had to categorize myself, I would probably say it's like page meets stage, where it doesn't necessarily have that spoken word, wow, which I wish I could have, but I'm not that. Part of me is a structuralist, so I want what's on the page to be almost as exciting as what is uttered. The interesting thing about what you're reading and the way that they are structured, especially when we get into poems like Before July. So during 2020, during the George Floyd protests, I was working on a piece for EHRP, which is the Economic Hardship Reporting Project. They were working in tandem with The Nation to create a podcast with Ray Suarez, which was amazing. I was living in Lower Manhattan during the protests, and I just had this feeling where if I don't go out tonight, if I don't make myself part of this in some way, whether it be recording images or audio, that I will regret it for the rest of my life. And I ended up going out on the first night where the protest turned into a riot. I got stuck in the riot, and I was altered by it. My mind was altered by it. What you see on the page when things are so spread apart, that happened after the trauma of the riot. I walked 12 miles that day trying to get back to my home because it just wasn't safe. There was smoke and explosions and bombs everywhere, Molotov cocktails in Lower Manhattan. It was a war zone, or a war scene zone. But I knew that something had happened in my mind when 2 days later I thought 2 weeks had passed. And I literally could not bring myself to understand that it had only been 2 days. I'm like, no, that was 2 weeks ago. It's ridiculous. And I had to like look at the calendar, look at my images, look at the timestamps. I'm like, that was 2 days? Like, what the fuck? And from that point on, I realized that I was creating psychic distance between me and everything else. And when I started composing after that, everything needed breathing room. Everything. As I was writing, I was like taking a breath, shift it out, drop it down, 3 lines, 4 lines. I just needed space. And whether or not that was me trying to process it, I don't think so. I think it was me creating distance from it, creating safety. And the way that it occurred, though, was such that as you read it, it's exactly the way I want it to sound, by creating this sort of like catching your breath, need more distance, this happens next. Like, the way it looks is the way it's read, which is why it was so important for you guys to have these copies. So for me, the structuralist approach is true, but I think I have modified it, or my PTSD has modified it, but it feels so authentic. And I couldn't imagine these poems looking any other way than they currently look.
Do you think maybe also that's a little bit about control? I know that's a common response to trauma.
We call it ordering the chaos, for one. But yes, of course, when things happen to you that affect you in a deep and profound way that were completely outside of your control, the natural human response is to make sense of all of it, to sweep it in, bring it in, say, no, now motherfuckers, you're under my control. All of this, come in here closer, I dominate this. Otherwise, you're just kind of cowering in the corner, I think, in some ways. But yeah, you'll find, and I connect with folks who do have PTSD, and we call it ordering the chaos. Like, I don't know if anyone here has PTSD, I'm very sorry, but when you hear a grouping of sounds, you immediately want to place a number to it. You have to, right? Like if a car backfires, or there's somebody like 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, that was 5. And that's your way of maintaining control over reality, because in those moments you had no control. And none of us want to accept how little control we have over the things that actually occur around us and to us. So, damn, you guys are bringing good ones.
So do you feel like if that ever does, if not already, fully integrate as like part of your character, that you will retain that sort of interesting structure? Or do you think that's something that's just like now folded into your style forever?
I think in many ways that this manuscript might be a sort of departure from poetry, I'm not going to lie. And I think that form as mechanism has taken me as far as it can in these ways. And I do think that maybe what I have to say would be better housed within prose or nonfiction. That's not to say that, because I trust my instincts and I trust my gut. So if a few months from now it's like, nah, this is a poem and it looks like this, I'm going to go with it. But I don't want it to become like a ploy, because this was so authentic to me, and understanding my trauma response at a visceral level because of the structure. Like, I don't want to turn that into a mechanism. I just want to honor it. And if I have to move on because of that, then so be it, if that makes sense.
You mentioned when you first started, I think you referred to it as the manuscript or the next book. Were you thinking of this as a book from the start?
No, I was thinking of this as the thing where I purge my subconscious and hide it away forever. Yeah. But the more came into it, like the more I understood it as this 4-section, I constantly call it a behemoth, but this yeah, it is behemoth. This thing, like, I just had to be as authentic as possible. So I don't know, like it does feel like this could be a mic drop for me for poetry and then transition to nonfiction so I can start writing a little more candidly about my experiences at Rikers Island and in the jails. Like I'm open to that. But yeah, this is a manuscript that makes no sense based on the common structure that we've all accepted for poetry. And this poor man reached out to me to see if I had like a chapbook that he could publish. I'm like, well, actually, I have 57 chapbooks in one book. And it wasn't anything like he was expecting, but he rose to the occasion instantly. And that showed me that not only is he a good poetry citizen, but that this book might have some merit. And this thing that I thought at some point I might just be purging my thoughts and hiding away, that might have merit too.
We'd had no contact, and I wrote her a message on Facebook, and I said, I love your face. There's this tension in your face that makes me want to see what you do. I had no idea what she wrote or anything.
Yeah, it's called pain.
I know that now. Yeah, that's how this started.
Yeah.
Scott's got a question.
Yep.
Yes, I just want to hear about your process for tying in history with the poems.
Sure.
I know a lot of your poems were historical, so it seems like there's a lot of research that goes into that.
Yeah.
So, I just wanted to
Oh, a ton. Yeah, a ton. So I think when I connect with my fellow poets, one of our favorite things to talk about are the rabbit holes that we go down when we're working on a poem. One of the ways that I like to contribute to that is through etymology. Anybody who works with me, whether it be in a workshop setting or as a peer, I'm always going to try to steer them towards the origin of their words. And even if that in and of itself doesn't reap any bounty, it still puts you in the mindset of you have an idea, dig into it. Go into it deeper, because the more you can flesh out this poem with reality, the more effective the poem will be. And it also shows that you're putting in the effort. For me, because I'm speaking about America, and because I feel myself in a strange position as a 5th or 6th generation American who actually kind of wants the original dream that we had for this country to progress, I feel like I really need to know my stuff. I have to. Because on top of the lived history that my Irish American family has lived, we have a multiplicity of identities that have been infused into this culture that have not received the same amount of dedication and devotion as my people have. So in many ways, I think it's irresponsible for me to not have everything grounded in research and in reality. This is not a time for, just making shit up that you think sounds good, which is fun too, not gonna lie. But no, we have a responsibility because we are, this is a turn, this is a cultural turn that we're all making. And if I want to be a steward of that, I need to know my stuff and I need to take it seriously. And also there's something to be said for inspiration, right? If you feel that little epiphany and it's guiding you towards a weird word or a principle or a historical fact, go in. Because whether or not that be your subconscious or some sort of divine intervention, it's important and necessary, and you need to follow it, and you need to take notes and incorporate it into your writing.
The book's already 226 pages. If we add the book bibliography, it's probably going to be 300.
Easy 300. And glossary, which is something I'm trying to start, and I'll just say very quickly about that. Because I teach in the jails, I know how hard it is to come by a dictionary, and I also know how important it is for the inmates to increase their vocabulary. So at the end of this book, there's a glossary for every word that one could reasonably decide that they don't know. And I think that should be a publishing practice or a standard. Not only the idea of having a paperback version of every hardcover, because you're not allowed to have hardcovers in prison, but also having that little glossary at the end where you define the words that they want to know, they want to understand, they want to engage with your text and improve their literacy. Because the hardest part of me working in jails, because I can promise you there were so many times where I just wanted to be like, okay, I'm done, I'm out, get me out of here, this is too much, is the literacy. So many of these people have a 3rd grade reading level. And I don't know whose failure that is. I don't want to speculate. I just know that it's our issue to deal with. These people want to know, and they don't know. And they need people to come in and basically teach them the fundamentals. Because, like, I'm not making that up. It's 3rd grade. It's like a majority are at a 3rd grade reading level. And that's a travesty, in my opinion. Teach in jail. Teach in prison. Do it.
Anybody else?
I have a question. You kind of already answered my first question, which was about form. I love what you said about the authenticity of your experiments with form, because so often I think people approach form like, and there's nothing wrong with playing, with form.
Yeah.
But it's not just a trick. It's not just a show off. It
Absolutely.
comes from someplace authentic.
Yes.
So when you were talking about identity politics versus trying to find a way forward or some sort of vision of wholeness,
Yeah.
it really made me think about my own poetic process, because I tend to first bust everything apart, like everything is just fragmented.
As you should.
And I'll take a fragment and I'll try to move, I guess, forward with it in some way. So if there's not wholeness at the end, there's at least the hope of wholeness. And so when I read this, I'm reminded of, it's very resonant for me right now, because I can't find America. And I'm not sure America was ever quite findable, but I'm like, where am I? Like, what are we? Like, what is this even? Do you have any feelings, just your process of assembling these poems, about what poetry or the poetic process could teach the public imagination, if that makes any sense?
Oh gosh, yeah, absolutely. So my answer is going to be twofold, because your question was so insightful. The first thing I'm going to say is that, and I'm not going to diagnose you, of course, because we all have a little bit of PTSD, but the need for progression, right? That's definitely someone who has been sitting in the muck of it and wants to make their way out of it. So a lot of us will have that impetus of progression so that we can feel better, be better, get past the thing that harmed us. And I think within our American consciousness right now as a culture, it is valuable to sit in the muck just for a little bit. And I know that a lot of us have been thrust into the muck, whether we liked it or not, and we resisted, and we're just like, oh my God, this is not my narrative, it's yours, whatever, I'll incorporate it later. But no, we gotta sit in it. I know that one of the hardest things to foster within ourselves is compassion, but it's also one of the most powerful things. So I know that I have been fortunate to have friends from childhood from a very multi-diverse background, like when it comes to race, to religion, to all of the demographics. Because I was in New York City, I got to sit with them and be with them in all of it. And while there is value to that, the idea of progression is at the forefront of our consciousness right now. And I'm really glad that you brought that up. Remind me of the second part of your question, because I got very involved with the first.
What does the poetic process have to possibly teach us as Americans in this moment?
Perfect. Thank you. So it's actually something that I think Chris and I connected with first, is John Keats' understanding of negative capability, where you get to sit in the reality where both things are true, the two opposing ideas, and you're like, oh fuck. Like, I really want to decide on one of them, because it's going to be so much more comfortable for me inside if I can just make a decision, but I understand too well the two realities, and they are actually existing at the same time, and you have to sit there, and you have to be in that space. And for me, that's where a lot of these poems came from, because from there I go to higher understanding, then I go to structure, then I go to automation, then I go to the non-personal, non-human aspects of creating art and structure and form. And from there, I can bring down an ideal that we all get behind, because I do think that the dream for America exists within the first generation of people who came to this country for a better life. whether we like it or not. Like, this is still the reality. And maybe I'm fortunate in that my family has not yet left New York City and are still like very much entrenched in like this Irish American narrative. And I'm like, that was 1840. Like, what are we doing now? But we're not done, because what do you do next? You wait, you stay, you build, you grow. So like, so much of my family is still in New York City. And my grandmother, the other one, not the one that I wrote about, she was an Irish revolutionary. One of the last things that she said to me before she died was like, and I just casually brought something up about the Irish and the English, and she was like, for 800 years they tried to wipe us off the face of the earth, and they only caused us to proliferate. And I'm just like, whoa. It's like, she's this big. I'm just like, yes ma'am, understood, got it. But like, what do you do with that energy? Like, she's still living it. So that means I'm still living it, because that's my family and I love her. And it hasn't been reconciled, because look what's happening in Ireland. Still have that little chunk that's colonized. You know what I mean? Like, we're still freaking in it. So in some ways it's a bounty that I am who I am and am born into this place, because I promise you, if it were any other way, I'd already be like up in Vermont in an A-frame with a pickup truck and a dog and just like done. Just like, go, done. Okay, good luck, everybody. But no, there's a responsibility that comes with this understanding and this willingness to sit in the uncomfortable, negative capability space. It sucks. But I'm with you. Yes?
You read for us a very powerful poem about things that are un-American.
Yes.
This is a question more about your personal experience and less about your poetry, but can you give me 3 things that you think are very American?
Ooh, that's a good one. Yes, I can. Organized labor, outside of the understanding, or the whole Red Scare. Like, come the fuck on, we're done. Organized labor is a huge one. I would call it a multi-diversity, but I think it'd be better explained as a multiplicity. For me, growing up in New York, like when people like try to connect with me on like a racial level, I'm just be like, nah, you don't understand, the food's so good. Like when you grow up as a kid in New York and all your friends are from like different ethnicities, like, do you understand how well you will eat when you visit them at all their houses? And you seek those moments of commonality, because I think to be American is to lean into commonality, because we have an unspoken ideal or an unspoken dedication that we're all here for, and we don't want to utter it too much because it makes us sound sentimental. So we'll channel it into these other ways of like, you know, like I'm with you, or like your mom's cooking is like banging, like stuff like that. I think those are very American. And then the third thing I would say is industry. I think that there is a lot to be said for the American industrial reality. And that I try to lean into that in my work, but it's hard. It's really hard because people don't have a keen understanding of the power, not only of the American consumer, but the American industrial worker, and how we have the ability to set a precedent globally. Instead of allowing corporations to go and prey upon third world countries and to hire disenfranchised people and children, we have the ability to be like, no, you don't get to operate outside of the United States. You operate here and you pay this living wage. And if you want to go extend that gratuity to other countries, then you are welcome to. But this is the standard. And we have the power to do these things. I promise you, we have the power to do these things. So those for me would be the 3 American things.
You can't stump this motherfucker.
I do sleep, though. I do.
know.
Yeah, I sleep. So y'all can fuck around while I'm sleeping.
Is that it? Who's afraid to ask the question?
Oh, stop. It's not like that.
The Welsh word that
Yeah.
you mentioned in the beginning, can you elaborate a little bit and why that word and why Welsh?
Sure. Well, Welsh because it's cool. But so for me, I left New York City briefly. I was married and have a daughter. And my husband at the time was transferred to the Washington, D.C. area. So this was the first time of like officially leaving home base to go explore myself We moved to not too far outside of DC in Maryland, and I kind of went on this mission to find my home. And I was waiting for a resonance. I was waiting for that feeling of having arrived because I felt like such an outsider where I was from. Staten Island is a very specific socio-political place, for y'all that don't know. Specific. And if you don't fit within that paradigm, you are an outlier. So I was waiting to arrive in these places that felt like home, and I drove the whole country. I took trains all over. So this was written in my experience of arriving and my experience of understanding humanity from those spaces. So the man that I wrote about was very real. And I was there with my daughter that night in the dining car. And I could tell that people were from all over the country, but in that space were seeking authentic expression. And he really had just lost his wife, who he had always traveled with for 53 years. And he had just lost her. And he was crying. And in that space where you're not located, you're also moving. It was just like, I have no choice but to connect with this man and to be with him. And as an empath, like, with him. And he was suffering, and he needed someone in that moment. And a lot of the poem expresses the futility of movement, trying to run away from our reality or who we are, trying to seek this idea of home when the home that we've been given is unsatisfactory to us, right? Geography is fate, and I rejected that fate for years. So for me, the word having the multiplicity that it has, right, hereth, which is a feeling of like homesickness or a lack of the feeling that home elicits, right? Which is beautiful, because it's like, yeah, I don't know what home is. I don't identify with this place I was born, but I know I'm missing something, and that's going to be the word for it. And I do think that we should steal all of the cool words from other languages and assimilate them into English, just so I am for that. Okay.
Are you comfortable with talking about your solution moving forward?
Which solution?
You know what I'm talking about.
Yeah? Yeah.
No, you're not.
Well, ish, yeah.
Never mind.
No, it's good. It's good, and I'll just say very quickly. I do think, based upon the fact that we're about to hit, or we did already almost hit the 250th anniversary of this country, that it is a good time to revisit the Constitution. And I know, we have a right to a constitutional convention. I know that everything is very contentious right now politically, so this would just probably seem like we're being thrown into upheaval. But I do think it is time to revisit that founding structure, because it was built upon a society that existed in this pre-industrial, pre-technological, pre-enlightenment era. And I think that first it needs to be fueled by art. I think all the artists in here and anyone out there, you need to make art, and you need to be renegades. And don't worry about graffiti, don't worry about vandalism. Say meaningful things, paint murals, graffiti that is art above tags, and just take back the public spaces as a precursor to taking back the larger public spaces, which is discourse. And I think that we all need to lean into the constitutional reality that the rights that are not reserved for the federal government or states are returned to the people, and that we have a lot more power than we have been led on to believe. So leaning into that, informing ourselves, seeking new legislation, asking for popular votes, asking for things to be on the ballot that have to do with ideals and practical matters and activism, not just like who we're going to vote for, but it's like, no, do we want this to be our reality, or do we want this? Like that's our next step, in my opinion, right? For the people, by the people. We have to step up. Otherwise, they're just going to keep doing this to us.
That's one of the sections in the book, Constitutional Convention.
Yeah.
Will you list the 4 titles of the 4 sections?
American Renaissance, Pardon the Fleeting Dictatorships, Constitutional Convention and American Awakening, where I overtly advocate for the use of psychedelics to heal from our trauma and to reunify as a nation, because I do believe that the individual has to heal so that we can lean into interdependence and then communal, if that's our decision. Otherwise, interdependence is a good arrival spot.
I'd like to welcome you at the beginning of a long career that must have had some long foreground somewhere else.
Oof. Jesus, Mary and Joseph. Yes, sir.
So, just, the last part you said, it kind of hit me with what a lot of the theme of your poetry is, finding commonality.
Yeah.
Of being able to relate with folks no matter where they're coming from or what
Yeah.
background. How do you establish that, and how do you recommend that other people do that with someone they don't necessarily have something in common with? Because you went into a prison where you have
Yeah.
nothing in common.
Oh, that's what you think. I did have a somewhat troubled childhood, so I do carry with me some trauma that people can relate to at those fundamental and instinctual levels. So it was almost like no matter how dark or deep the participants went, I was just like, yeah, I know, because I've been there. So I do have that resonance. But then, if we can take our conceptual understanding of the universal, which we know is a fallacy, but there are concepts and principles within it that we can lean into. And being vulnerable, right? The grandma thing is real, right? You could just be like, you had a grandma, right? You know the one I'm talking about. You connect at those levels, those really fundamental levels of vulnerability, but you have to be willing to go into those spaces, and they're hard. They're hard. I've been in the day room, at Mods and RNDC and Rikers and crying, but also they've been crying too. They were willing to be vulnerable with me. So in that moment, when your human instinct tells you, this is what I need to rise up within me to connect with the person in front of me, don't shy away from it, because we have instincts. We do. I know that Jung talked about the collective unconscious or subconscious, right? It's real. We have collective dreams. We have collective thought patterns. And when you're with someone and there's a resonance that tells you, you got to talk about your Uncle Sam or whatever it is, you just be like, you had a drunk uncle, didn't you? In those moments, because there's always an opportunity for connection, but we have to make ourselves available for that and not be afraid. And that can be super hard because we don't want these strangers to know our stuff, right? But I think we're at a point in human history, and especially American history, where we have to be willing to lay it all out on the table because it's worth it. We're done, right? We're good. Oh, for now.
All right.
Ah! Thank you. And thank you.